The first of 10 fears that you may not have to worry about as much as you think. Number 1 being, maybe you're worrying about being bad at it. I almost quit riding at one point because of how difficult it was, especially as a smaller rider who was trying a lot of bikes and a variety of riding. I also didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know that there were resources for certain things. For instance, I really struggled with bikes that were a little bit taller or a little bit heavier. And anytime I got on a slightly taller or bigger bike, I would drop it or almost drop it. And at one point I really thought maybe riding isn't for me. Like if all I can ride is my 1-cylinder 650 cruiser where can't keep up with any group ride, barely making it on the highway. It wasn't until a subscriber told me about Jocelyn Snow's showing that yes, you can handle bigger bikes. Yes, if something in riding is difficult, there's always somebody who has figured out how to do it. And don't be afraid to ask for help. If you drop your bike in public, or if you're even just stuck in a parking spot and you can't back your bike up, find that other riders and even people, if you just ask, can be very helpful. Another thing you may be worrying about is riding alone. I've done a lot of solo road trips to Sturgis, Tail of the Dragon, across the country and back. And one of the most common fears I hear from other people is you're doing it alone? Like you're by yourself? I was planning on being on a solo road trip right now on Route 66, but we'll get into that in a little bit. Common sense goes a very long way. Just not riding at night, not stopping at sketchy gas stations. If your bike breaks down, there's roadside assistance. And just be prepared with snacks and water in case you ever are stranded and you need to wait for potentially hours. It can happen. So there was a guy on the Tail of the Dragon who went down, and in a lot of areas in the US, including Tail of the Dragon, there's no phone signal. So this guy and his friend both went down, and he fell off the edge. He was down in the woods in a way where people on the road couldn't see him, couldn't see his bike. He had enough broken bones that he couldn't move. He even ended up making a goodbye video, not knowing that he'd survive. So that's something else that I'm doing to be safe. I just got this, Zoleo. And basically, you don't need a phone signal and you can still send out emergency messages, get medical attention. I know what you're thinking, your iPhone has SOS feature, you can use satellite in emergency there. No, here's why that's not good enough and why you need a dedicated satellite communication device. If you're just using your iPhone, you actually need to stand and find connection and put it in line with satellites. But if you got a satellite communication, you don't have to worry about that. You can be injured and unable to move and not have to search for satellite signal. With this one specifically, that's why I really want you all to get this because it is on sale too. It can automatically send free check-ins with your location to someone that you've shared your location with. With an iPhone, you'll have to do that manually. Another big truck, jeez Louise. I used to share my location with my husband Cody when I'd be on road trips using my iPhone, but he would say that a lot of times he would lose me. Basically every couple of hours I would need to reshare that location with him. And I've also used other apps before, apps that claim on your iPhone that if you ever go down, they'll alert someone for you. I can attest that iPhone app did not work, but with this you can set your location at preset intervals. Whether you want to share your location every 6 minutes even, or every hour, you can do that. But the most important thing is that this has 24/7 non-emergency assistance for medical advice. So I'm gonna link to that down below. This was what I was going to use on my upcoming road trip, but I've had to postpone that. So when I'm on my road trip, this is what I'm gonna be using. I've already tested it at home and it seems super efficient. So it's on sale right now, so make sure to get yourself one. That's how you can mitigate that fear of being stranded alone in need of medical care. Another big truck? What is happening today? Please. At some point, I think I can share with you what happened, but not today. So that leads me into the next fear you might have, and that's about crashing. Yes, as a rider, you are 27 times more likely to be in an accident on a bike than in a car. But if you focus on that headline, you're missing out on very key data that can actually help you. So first off, I was wearing full gear, and although I need to be on crutches for at least 3 weeks, nothing is broken. Let me show you how my gear survived. So I had no impact on upper body, pretty much. other than my hands. So here's a little bit of scraping here. The glove kind of opened up right here, and I got just this little scrape on the palm of my hand. But other than that, just some minor scrapes and bruises on my left leg, and then the gnarly one on my right knee where I landed. So these are the pants I was wearing. Pando Moto, thank you for your very smart armor placement, because check this out. That's exactly where the hip armor was. I don't even have a bruise on my hip, and clearly there was some impact, enough to rip riding jeans. This was on my left leg where just some minor scrapes and bruises. This was on my right knee that's pretty swollen right now. I did put in this knee armor that didn't come with the pants though, and that's D30, just because I think it's the safest knee armor that I owned. So wearing full gear can make all the difference between broken bones, road rash, and even nothing. I've gone down twice on track days before this, and in a full leather suit with even thicker armor, I was able to walk away with just a sore wrist. So yes, you may be afraid of that moment. Okay, well, what if you do go down? Wear full gear, it can make such a difference. And then I have some data points for you that if you really pay attention to, can reduce your chances of being in an accident. So first, just note that 50% of motorcycle accidents did not involve another vehicle. They're a single rider. So that's something that could be within the rider's control. 45% of fatal motorcycle accidents, the rider had alcohol in their system. That's a huge percent. 31% were speeding, 9% didn't have a license, 37% of fatal motorcycle accidents, the rider would have survived if they had just been wearing a helmet. And 72 out of 100,000 registered motorcycles in the US actually experience a crash. That's 0.0007%. So yes, your chances are higher on a bike than in a car, but they're actually still pretty slim. And if you wear a helmet, don't speed, don't drink and ride, take courses to be a better rider, have a license, you've put yourself in a drastically better place. Sometimes fear is based on experiences and information, but a lot of times, like you can see in this video, it's based on inexperience and lack of information. Sometimes fear is just an opportunity to learn more. And this next fear, breaking news, dropping your bike is not that big of a deal. The more I ride, the more I train with some of the best riders in the industry. Motor officers, BMW GS trophy riders, professional racers. The more I see that it's the people who are the best, the people who push themselves the most. Those are the ones that have crossed the thresholds of mistakes a lot more than just an average rider. And okay, now I know you may be afraid of, well, what if I break something on my bike? Or what if I hurt myself when I drop a bike? And what if I can't pick it up? I got you on all three of those points. Just hold on. So get drop protection for your bike. Right now, both of my bikes are protected in a way that if they fall over, nothing's gonna happen to them. Except for the Tiger, I've really pushed myself in training with it. So I've dropped it so many times that the crash protection has buckled in, and it did break a lever because I didn't replace it. So just keep that in mind if you're gonna be pushing yourself that much. But I definitely recommend some drop protection. If you got a big bagger, just some wide engine guards are enough to keep it from falling over and damaging anything. If you've got a sport bike or an adventure bike or a touring bike like my Tiger, I've got engine guards on the sides, but I also have some protection on the handlebars. Okay, and then what about hurting yourself? So if you're in full gear, coming from someone who's dropped a lot in training on both of these bikes, I've never been nicked up at all, or even had a bruise from just a drop anyways. I usually just land on my feet, like almost always. And that could be because I'm sitting high up on the seat on the police Harley, and on the Tiger, maybe also seating position. I'm not totally sure, but that's what happens. Just whatever you do, don't try to stop like a 900-pound bike from falling with your foot. Like, it's just better to let it fall. Okay, and then what about if you can't pick up your bike? So I couldn't pick up either of these bikes when I first got them, but you can learn to do that. Sometimes it's just a matter of the right technique and practicing that technique. So just because you can't pick up your bike today doesn't mean you won't be able to next week. I was very determined to be able to pick up both of these bikes, so I also decided to add in a workout routine. I had been wanting to get stronger for many years, but I never really had motivation to make me want to do it. Appearance wasn't enough of a motivator for me, but being able to pick up my 2 dream bikes was. So I started working out, drinking protein, upping my calorie intake. And now squatting the Tiger anyways, I'll set it down on some tires so I can do more reps. And it's part of my workout routine once a week. And if you drop it in public, yes, you may be embarrassed, but that's okay. Just ride off and you'll never see those people again after you flag someone down to help you if someone isn't already coming. So another thing you may be worried about is judgment from others in your life, like the non-riders. That part is annoying. Anytime me riding comes up with a non-rider, the first thing they say is how their brother's best friend's ex-girlfriend's sister's second cousin got in an accident and died. It's gonna happen. It's what they do. But kind of one of my big concerns back when I worked in an office, I was really worried about coming across unprofessional. I don't know, it was it was the department of all women, very girly women, and it was just a very, office setting. So I would come early, change out of my gear, but eventually people noticed that there was a helmet under my desk and people figured it out. But I didn't actually get judgment, even from people there. I would have expected it. People actually thought it was cool and wanted to ask about it and talk about it. And yes, share the story of their distant person they knew that got in an accident. But I found out that was a fear that wasn't quite something I really needed to worry about. So this is applicable especially if you're a newer rider, but you may be afraid of going high speeds. Listen, we've all been there. I didn't go into second gear until the very end of the last day of the MSF course. The coaches told me, we cannot pass you unless you go into second gear. Like, you need to go a little faster. I'm still actually on the slow side. Maybe this data point might help you, because that was something else my family was really worried about me, was riding on the highway. Well, most common motorcycle accidents, location-wise, are actually at intersections. So pretty slow speed. It's a vehicle turning left in front of a bike. So if you know that, you're actually statistically safer on the highway than you are in town. And just be extra cautious when you're at intersections. Make sure the riders are, let me wait for this truck. Another big truck. Make sure the drivers around you see you, or that you are clear from their path. By the way, I have the resources of all this data I'm mentioning in a blog post, which I'll link to down below. Another thing you might be worried about is your vulnerability to theft. So not just your bike being stolen, but one very specific thing my dad was worried about for me when I first started riding was that I would be at a stoplight and someone would just steal something off of me. And because I was on the bike, it'd be hard to defend myself and they could just take off. So I don't know of that really happening very often, but something you can do is just, whenever you're at an intersection especially, just always think of an exit strategy. Say if a car is coming behind you very fast and you don't want to be hit from behind, when you're at a stop, don't go into neutral. Keep yourself in first gear. Don't put your kickstand down. Keep your hands on the handlebar, so if you need to get out quickly, you can. And also keep in mind where your bike placement is. If you are really close to the car and in the center, you can't move. So you want to be placed somewhere in the lane, or at least with enough room that you can ride out from the side of the car in front of you if you have to. And as far as your bike getting stolen, yes, that's a real possibility. Obviously, they're much easier to steal than a car. One thing you can do is, I have a portable GPS that I move across bikes, especially when traveling on bikes I'm borrowing from manufacturers. And you can just barely move the bike and it will call you and show you the location of your bike. So you can send that to the police. You don't need to be tracking down thieves. You can send it to police so they can know and find where your bike is. I'll link to the one I have down below too. That's the Monimoto GPS, is the portable one, and they're coming up with a wired one pretty soon. Another thing you might be worried about is how overwhelming it can be and how much there is to learn about bikes and riding and taking care of your bikes. Just don't worry, pace yourself. We've all been there, starting from ground zero. And you don't have to do everything. For instance, I don't really know how to take care of my bikes. That's just so much to learn. I want it to be done right. So I take my bikes to the shop for just about everything. At the very least, just know how to do T-clocks. So checking your tires and your wheels and your chassis, basically your bike, the frame of your bike, lights and electric, oil and all your fluid levels, C, your chain, if you have it, you might have a belt drive. And S, stands or kickstand, make sure that's in working order. So just that pre-ride inspection, just make sure you can do that. Make sure you can top off your oil. Don't ask me how I know. And if you've got that side down, and I'd say at least that's like the minimum of the outside of riding stuff to educate yourself on. And your gear as well, like, protecting yourself. Another thing you may be worried about is the fear of embarrassment. Not just dropping your bike in public, but also just feeling like you just know so little and your skills are so low. We've all been there. If any rider ever makes you feel bad about that, then send them to me. I will talk to them myself. I'd say as riders, we are excited to have new riders coming into the mix. Or if you can't ride a lot, or if you have very sparse riding and maybe your skills show that, or your knowledge shows that, no one should be judging you for that. At least you're still riding and you're putting in the time that you can. Another thing you may be worried about is just being new to the sport or trying to find other riders to ride with and not knowing anyone. So, like I said, existing riders, we are excited when new people become riders. It is like such an exciting thing to happen. So you can find a ton of group rides online, on Meetup, on Facebook, or just communities in general, people to ride with, people to find. But generally, I'd say that people are very welcoming and excited to see and embrace someone that's new to the space or doesn't know many other people in the space. Some of these things may be controversial, but if I started riding today, here are 10 things I wish I knew before I started riding.